My sister shaved my 6-year-old nephew's head and forced him to act weak for her 2 million followers, claiming he had leukemia to fund her new G-Wagon. While her fans were crying in the comments and donating thousands for his experimental treatment, I found the stash of sleeping pills she used to make him look lethargic hidden inside a designer shoebox in her walk-in closet. Tell me honestly, does she deserve jail time, or is losing custody enough punishment for a mother like this? To understand how we got to this nightmare, you have to understand one thing. Lexi didn't just want attention, she needed it like oxygen, and our parents were her dealers. I once sat in a 1999 Dodge Caravan for an hour with a fractured arm, listening to applause for my sister's ballet recital inside. Mom said I was being dramatic. That was the dynamic. Lexi shined, I survived. But what I didn't know then was that her need for attention would one day nearly kill her own son. I don't know if anyone else grew up as the invisible sibling. Let me know if this sounds familiar. By our 20s, I was a nurse living in a studio apartment that smelled like damp drywall. Lexi was a lifestyle influencer with 2 million followers. She married Trent, a nice but spineless guy, and they had Leo. Leo became her ultimate accessory. Look at his outfit. Tap the link in bio for his onesie. Leo's first steps, sponsored by Pampers. It was annoying, sure, but it wasn't dangerous. Not yet. The shift happened about 3 months ago. Lexi's engagement numbers were dropping. The algorithm changed, or maybe people just got bored of her beige-colored living room and perfectly curated brunch photos. She was panicked. She called me at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, crying, "I'm losing them, Sarah. I lost 4,000 followers this week. If I don't get the numbers up, I lose the Sephora partnership." I told her to maybe get a real job. She hung up on me. 2 weeks later, the tone of her content changed. No more happy brunches. It started with vague posts, a black and white photo of Leo's hand holding hers. Caption, "Pray for my little warrior. We got some hard news today." Then came the diagnosis, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I was shocked. I'm a nurse. I called her immediately, offering to help navigate the specialists, the oncology appointments, the chemo protocols. "Oh, don't worry, Sarah," she said, her voice strangely light. "We have a private holistic specialist. He's very exclusive. We're handling it." She refused to let me come to appointments. She refused to tell me the doctor's name. Be honest, would you be suspicious immediately, or would you trust your sister? Last Saturday, I finally forced a visit. I told her I was coming to drop off some organic soups, and I didn't give her a choice. I pulled up to her house, a massive white modern farmhouse that cost way more than Trent could afford, at 10:15 a.m. When I walked in, the house was silent. Too silent for a house with a 6-year-old boy. "In here," Lexi whispered loudly from the living room. I walked in and froze. The living room looked like a film set. 3 ring lights were positioned around the beige sectional sofa. Reflectors were set up to bounce light onto Leo's face. And Leo, my heart shattered. He was sitting on the couch, pale with dark circles under his eyes, and his head was shaved completely bald. "Oh my God, Leo," I gasped, rushing over to him. He looked up at me, his eyes glassy and unfocused. He tried to smile, but his eyelids were heavy. He looked exhausted, drugged. "Auntie Sarah," he slurred slightly, "I'm tired." "Don't touch him," Lexi snapped, not moving from behind her tripod. "You'll mess up the lighting. We're about to go live for the chemo update." "Chemo update?" I asked, looking at Leo. "Leo, he looks barely conscious. Did he have treatment today?" "He's fighting," she said dramatically, adjusting her own hair in the monitor of her iPhone 15 Pro Max. "He's a warrior, okay? Quiet on set." I watched in horror as she hit go live. Instantly, her face transformed. She went from annoyed director to grieving saintly mother in 0.5 seconds. A single tear rolled down her cheek. I swear she practiced that. "Hi guys," she whispered into the phone. "I know I haven't posted since yesterday. It's been a really hard night. Leo is just... he's so weak from the meds." She panned the camera to Leo. "Leo, baby, tell the nice people thank you for the stars," she cooed. Leo blinked slowly. "Thank you," he mumbled. He looked like he was about to fall over. "He's so brave," Lexi sobbed. "If you want to support his journey, the link to his treatment fund is in the bio. We need to raise $50,000 for the new round of therapy next week." I felt sick. As a nurse, I know what chemo patients look like. They look sick. Leo didn't look sick in that way. He didn't have the mucositis sores. He didn't have the specific pallor. He looked like someone who had taken too much Benadryl. When the stream ended, Lexi's demeanor snapped back to normal. "Okay, great. That was gold. 12,000 viewers." She checked her phone. "Yes, $800 in donations already." "Lexi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need to use your bathroom."
Upstairs, guest 1. She waved me off, already typing a caption. I went upstairs, but I didn't go to the guest bathroom. I went to the master bedroom. I needed proof. Something felt wrong in my gut. I went into her massive walk-in closet. It was filled with designer bags, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada. For a family asking for money for treatment, she certainly wasn't selling any assets. I started looking through the shelves. Nothing. Then I saw it, a shoebox for a pair of Balenciaga sneakers tucked high up on the top shelf behind a stack of winter sweaters. It was the only box that wasn't perfectly aligned. I pulled it down and opened it. My breath hitched. It wasn't shoes. It was a pharmacy. There were 6 bottles of ZZ Quil, 4 boxes of heavy-duty antihistamines, a bottle of melatonin gummies, the adult strength, and a pill crusher. But the worst part? There was a schedule taped to the inside of the lid. It was written in Lexi's bubbly, loopy handwriting with a pink marker. 8 a.m., 2 pink pills, crushed plus juice for morning content. 2 p.m., 1 blue pill, nap time, reels editing. 7 p.m., nighttime stream. I stared at the paper. She wasn't treating cancer. She was chemically restraining her son to make him look sick and compliant for the camera. The leukemia was a shaved head and a drug-induced stupor. I took a photo of the box. My hands were shaking so hard. The first one came out blurry. I took 2 more. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. "Sarah, what are you doing up there?" Lexi's voice called out. It wasn't the sweet influencer voice anymore. It was sharp, suspicious. I shoved the box back onto the shelf, but I didn't slide it back far enough. It was sticking out. I turned around just as Lexi appeared in the doorway of the closet. Her eyes went from my face to the shoebox above my head. The silence in that room was louder than a scream. "What do you think you're doing?" At this point, I honestly didn't know if I should run or fight. What would you do here?
I expected my sister to panic when I found the box of sedatives. Instead, Lexi looked at me with dead, shark-like eyes and said, "Sarah, you really need to get help for your jealousy issues. It's becoming dangerous." 10 minutes later, I was the one being kicked out of the house while my sick nephew was forced to film a TikTok about how much he missed his mean auntie. Tell me, have you ever caught someone in a lie so big they convinced everyone you were the crazy one? Let's go back to that closet. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I held the box of ZZ Quil and crushed pills like a smoking gun. "Lexi, there is a schedule. You are drugging him. This isn't cancer treatment. This is abuse." Lexi didn't even blink. She walked over, snatched the box from my hand, and tossed it into a laundry hamper. "Those are my pills, you psycho," she said, her voice terrifyingly calm. "I have insomnia because I'm up all night caring for a dying child. The schedule is for his vitamins. I crush them because his throat is sore from the chemo. Vitamins don't make you pass out in the middle of a sentence, Lexi. And what chemo? You won't tell me the doctor's name." She pulled out her phone. "Get out, or I call mom and dad and tell them you broke in and stole my anxiety meds." I left thinking I had enough proof, but I was wrong. I drove straight to my parents' house, shaking, and showed them the photos of the pills, playing the voice note of Leo slurring his words. My mother looked at the photo, then looked at me, sighing, not in horror, but annoyance. "Sarah," she said, cutting a piece of lemon cake, "why can't you just let your sister have her moment?" I stared at her. "Her moment, Mom? She is poisoning Leo. She's coping," my dad yelled from his recliner. "Her son is sick and she's doing her best to raise money for his care. All you've ever done is criticize her because she's successful on the internet and you're just a nurse." Just a nurse? That hit harder than a slap. "She's raising money for a G-Wagon, Dad, not for treatment. She needs a reliable car to get to specialists," Mom snapped. "Safety is paramount." They kicked me out too, and by the time I got back to my apartment, I had been blocked by my parents, my brother, and Lexi on all social media. Be honest, would you cut off your parents if they protected an abuser, or would you keep trying to convince them? Over the next week, I watched from a burner account as Lexi's narrative spiraled. She posted a video crying in her Tesla saying, "Family isn't always blood. Unfortunately, my sister has chosen to bully us during this tragedy." The comments were vile, calling me a monster. Then came the big announcement. Lexi launched the Leo Strong Foundation Gala, a black tie fundraiser at a local hotel ballroom. Tickets were $200 a plate. The goal was to raise $100,000 for experimental stem cell therapy in Switzerland.
or as I knew it, a Mercedes G63 AMG. I zoomed in on the photo of Leo she used for the flyer. He looked gray. His lips were chapped. She was starving him to sell the cancer look. I couldn't sit at home. I bought a ticket under a fake name, wearing a black wig and a thrift store dress. The ballroom was packed with people wanting to feel good about themselves. Lexi was on stage in a shimmering gold gown, holding a microphone, looking like she was accepting an Oscar. "It's so hard," she sobbed, no tears actually falling. "Every day is a battle, but Leo is fighting." Then they wheeled him out. My stomach dropped. Leo was in a wheelchair wearing a tiny tuxedo. He wasn't just sleepy this time, he was limp, his head lolled to the side. "Leo baby, wave to the people," Lexi chirped, tilting the microphone toward him. Leo didn't wave. He let out a low moan. "Mommy, thirsty," he whispered. "Not right now, sweetie. Remember, the doctor said no fluids before the scan." She lied smoothly. I couldn't take it. I stood up, ripped off the wig, and screamed, "He doesn't have a scan. Give him water. He's dehydrated." The room went silent. Lexi's eyes locked onto mine. She didn't look scared. She looked excited. This was content. "Security," she yelled. "It's her, the stalker's sister." Two massive guards grabbed me. "Let me go! Look at him! He's sedated!" I screamed, kicking. "Get her out of here," Lexi commanded, shielding Leo like a protective mother hen. "I am so sorry, everyone. Mental illness is a tragedy." As they dragged me backward, I made eye contact with Trent, Lexi's husband. He was standing in the shadows off stage, looking at me, terrified. He gave me a tiny nod and mouthed one word: "Help." They threw me out into the rain. I sat on the curb, defeated, until a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of a bank statement showing a transfer of $50,000 from the Leo Strong Fund to a dealership called Prestige Imports, followed by a text: "She's going to kill him, Sarah. She upped the dose tonight because he was crying too much. I can't stop her. She has dirt on me. You have to save him." It was Trent. I had the proof. But before I could reply, a police cruiser pulled up. Two officers stepped out. "Sarah Miller, you are being served with a temporary restraining order. Stay 500 feet away from Alexis and Leo Miller. If you violate this again, you will be arrested." I have the proof, but now I'm legally banned from saving Leo. I need to know, do I break the law and risk prison to save Leo, or do I trust the system that just failed me?
The handcuffs were cutting into my wrists, and I could taste blood in my mouth where the officer had tackled me to the concrete. But as they shoved me into the back of the squad car, I wasn't crying. I was smiling, because through the window of the ambulance, I saw my nephew's chest rise and fall. Tell me, is it really a crime to break down a door if it stops a murder, or does the law only care about paperwork? Let's rewind 3 hours. I was sitting in my dark apartment, staring at the restraining order on my coffee table. I felt helpless, defeated. Then my phone buzzed. 11:42 p.m. It was Trent again. The text was short, but it made my blood freeze. "She's doing a final goodbye stream tonight. She gave him the special juice, but she used the whole bottle. She wants him to drift away on camera. I'm locked in the garage. She took my keys. Sarah, please." My stomach dropped. In the influencer world, a dead child is the ultimate content. It's a lifetime of sympathy, interviews, and book deals. Lexi wasn't just faking his sickness anymore. She was scripting his death. I didn't call the police. They would take too long. And they would see the restraining order and think I was the crazy one calling in a false report. I grabbed my car keys and my nursing kit. I had to get there before the credits rolled. I drove 90 miles per hour down the freeway. I ran 2 red lights. I didn't care. When I pulled up to the farmhouse, it was pitch black, except for one window. The living room, the studio. I crept up to the side of the house. I could hear her voice through the window. It was soft, trembling, performative. "We don't know if he'll make it through the night," she was saying. "His breathing is so shallow. Please, guys, pray for Leo." I looked through the crack in the curtains. Leo was lying on a makeshift hospital bed in the middle of the living room. He looked like a corpse. His skin was gray, his lips were blue. And Lexi? She was adjusting the ring light to make sure the shadows hit her cheekbones correctly. I tried the back door. Locked. I tried the garage keypad. Changed. I looked around and saw a heavy ceramic garden gnome, one of those tacky decorations Lexi bought for a garden reveal video. I picked it up. Be honest, at this point, would you wait for the cops, or are you smashing that glass? Smash.
The sound of the patio door shattering was louder than a gunshot. Inside, Lexi screamed, "Oh my God, someone is breaking in! Call 911!" I didn't stop. I crunched over the glass shards, ignoring the cuts on my ankles, and sprinted into the living room. Lexi spun around, phone in hand. The live stream was still running. 45,000 people were watching. "You!" she shrieked, her face twisting from grief to rage. "You have a restraining order. Get out. You're stressing him out." "He's not stressed, Lexi. He's overdosing," I yelled. I pushed past her and fell to my knees beside Leo. I checked his pulse. It was thready, barely there. I checked his respiration, 4 breaths a minute. "Bradypnea," I whispered. "Pinpoint pupils." These weren't cancer symptoms. This was opioid toxicity, or heavy sedatives. "Get away from him!" Lexi lunged at me, grabbing my hair. She yanked my head back, screaming at the phone. "She's attacking us! My crazy sister is attacking my dying son!" I didn't fight her back. I didn't have time. I shoved her away with all my strength, sending her stumbling into her tripod. The phone fell, but it landed face up. The camera was now pointing directly at us from the floor. The angle was low, but the picture was clear. "Leo, baby, wake up!" I slapped his cheeks, hard. "Leo!" No response. I grabbed my nursing bag. I didn't have Narcan, but I had a sternum rub. I dug my knuckles into the center of his chest and ground them down. It's painful. It's designed to wake people up from deep unconsciousness. Nothing. "Stop it! You're hurting him!" Lexi was back, clawing at my face. "I am saving him!" I roared, turning to look directly into the camera lens on the floor. "Look at him. Look at his lips. That is cyanosis. He is not dying of cancer. He is dying of respiratory failure from sedatives. Call the police. Call an ambulance now." I think the desperation in my voice broke through the screen, because the comments, which were scrolling furiously on the fallen phone, shifted. Why are his lips blue? Why isn't he waking up from the screaming? Wait, she's a nurse. Listen to her. Lexi saw the comments. Panic flickered in her eyes. Not panic for Leo, panic for her brand. She dove for the phone to end the live. "Don't you dare." I tackled her. We wrestled on the floor next to her dying son. She was scratching, biting, screaming about her follower count. I was just trying to keep her away from the end live button. Suddenly, a gasp. We both froze. From the bed, a sound, a choking, gagging sound. Leo vomited. Because he was on his back, he started to choke. I scrambled off Lexi and rolled Leo onto his side just in time. The vomit cleared his airway. He took a huge, ragged breath. "Auntie," he wheezed, "juice tasted bad." "I know, baby, I know," I sobbed, holding his frail body. Lexi stood up. She smoothed her dress. She looked at the phone, which was still streaming. She reached out a hand to Leo. "Oh, thank God, Mommy is here." "Don't touch him," I growled like a feral animal. Sirens wailed outside. Blue and red lights flooded the living room. Lexi ran to the door, throwing it open. "Help! She broke in! She's trying to kidnap my son!" 3 officers stormed in with guns drawn. "Hands in the air! Get on the ground!" I raised my hands. I was still kneeling next to Leo. "Please," I said, tears streaming down my face, mixed with blood from a scratch on my forehead. "Check the trash can in the kitchen. The bottle is there. Check his blood. Please, just check his blood." An officer grabbed me, twisted my arms behind my back, and slammed the cuffs on. "Sarah Miller, you are under arrest for violation of a protective order, breaking and entering, and assault." As they dragged me out, I looked back. Paramedics were swarming Leo. One of them looked at the other and mouthed, "Overdose." Lexi was standing in the corner, trying to talk to the police, but for the first time, no one was looking at her. They were looking at the comments on the phone she had forgotten to turn off. The stream was still running, and 60,000 people had just witnessed the truth. I'm sitting in a jail cell as I write this, facing 5 years in prison, but Leo is alive. Tell me, did I ruin my life, or was it worth it?
My sister walked into the courtroom wearing a modest gray suit, no makeup, and clutching a rosary, looking like a grieving saint. She thought her lawyer could spin the narrative, or that her fans outside the courthouse holding "Free Lexi" signs could intimidate the judge. She didn't know that while I was sitting in a jail cell, her own husband had turned state witness and handed the DA the unedited footage of what she did to Leo when the cameras were off. Tell me, do you think 15 years in prison is justice, or did she get off easy for torturing a child? I spent 48 hours in county jail. Those were the longest hours of my life. I didn't know if Leo Leo was alive. I didn't know if I was a felon. When the guard finally unlocked the door, I expected to see a public defender. Instead, I saw Trent, Lexi's husband. He looked 10 years older than he did a week ago. "He's alive, Sarah," he said, his voice cracking. They pumped his stomach. It was promethazine and liquid oxycodone, a lethal dose for a 6-year-old. I slumped against the wall, sliding down until I hit the floor, sobbing with relief. "I posted bail for you," Trent said, looking at his hands. "And I gave the police everything. The fake doctor's notes, the bank transfers for the G-Wagon, the text messages where she told me to shut the kid up so she could film." "Why now?" I asked, wiping my eyes. "You watched it happen for months." "Because I saw the comments on that live stream," he whispered. "When you broke that window, you broke the spell. I realized she wasn't building a future for us. She was building a coffin for him." The trial began 3 months later. It was a media circus. Netflix was already trying to buy the rights. Lexi entered a plea of not guilty by reason of diminished capacity. Her defense was that the stress of having a sick child made her snap. It was Munchausen by proxy, but she was spinning it as mother's fatigue. My parents sat in the front row behind Lexi. They wouldn't look at me. My mother actually hissed "traitor" when I walked past her to take the witness stand. The defense attorney tore me apart. "Ms. Miller, isn't it true you have a history of jealousy toward your sister? Isn't it true you broke into a private residence and assaulted a grieving mother?" I held my ground. "I broke into a crime scene to save a victim," I said, my voice shaking but clear, "and I'd do it again." But the turning point wasn't my testimony, it was the video evidence. Not the live stream I crashed, the outtakes. Trent had recovered deleted files from her cloud. The prosecutor played a clip on the massive screens in the courtroom. It was dated 2 weeks prior to the incident. On screen, Leo was crying over a bowl of broccoli. Lexi's voice from behind the camera: "Cut. Leo, stop crying. You don't look sad, you look bratty. We need sad cancer boy, not tantrum boy. If you don't stop, no iPad for a week. Mommy, my tummy hurts. The pink medicine makes my tummy hurt. The pink medicine pays for this house, Leo. Now swallow it and look at the lens." She force-fed him a spoon of syrup. He gagged. She slapped his arm. "Smile. Be brave. Action." The courtroom went dead silent. Even my mother covered her mouth, her face turning ashen. Lexi didn't look at the screen. She was furiously scribbling on a notepad, looking annoyed that her director's cut was being criticized. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: aggravated child abuse, wire fraud, distribution of controlled substances to a minor. When the judge read the sentence, 15 years in federal prison, no parole for at least 12, Lexi finally broke. But she didn't cry for Leo. She stood up and screamed at the jury. "You don't understand. I did it for us. I did it for the brand. You're all just haters. You're just jealous of my following." As the bailiffs dragged her out, she looked at me. "You ruined everything, Sarah. You're invisible. You're nothing." "I might be invisible," I said quietly, though she couldn't hear me over her own screaming, "but Leo is finally seen." It's been 8 months. The Leo Strong money was seized and returned to donors. The farmhouse was sold to pay legal fees. Trent signed away his parental rights. He knew he was complicit, even if he turned witness. He moved to another state to start over. He sends cards, but he knows he doesn't deserve to be a dad right now. I adopted Leo. It hasn't been easy. The withdrawal symptoms lasted for weeks. He had night terrors where he'd wake up screaming, asking if the red light was on. He was terrified of phones. If I pulled my phone out to check the time, he would flinch and put on a fake smile. But we're getting there. We moved to a small house near the ocean. No cameras, no social media. My parents tried to visit once. They brought gifts. They said they made a mistake and wanted to see their grandside. I met them on the porch. I didn't let them in. "You chose your daughter when she was a monster," I told them. "You don't get to choose her victim now that he's safe." I closed the door in their faces. Yesterday, I was in the kitchen making dinner. I looked out the window. Leo was in the backyard. His hair has grown back, thick, messy curls. He's gained 10 pounds. His cheeks are pink, not from makeup, but from the sun. He was chasing a butterfly, laughing. He tripped and fell into the mud. He didn't look for a camera. He didn't check if anyone was filming. He just wiped the mud on his shorts, laughed, and kept running. For the first time in his life, he isn't content. He's just a kid. I still have nightmares about that night. I still have the scar on my ankle from the broken glass. But when I tuck him in at night and he falls asleep without needing a pink pill, I know I made the right choice. My sister writes me letters from prison. She blames me for stealing her life. She says when she gets out, she's going to write a book and become famous again. I burn the letters without opening them. But I need to know, do you think people like her can ever actually change? Or are some people just born without a soul? And was I right to cut our parents off forever? Let me know.